Hello, everyone, and welcome to another installment in my Memoir 44 Bagration series. We've covered 2/3 of the scenario by now. This is the first one of 6 in covering the southern part of the offensive, and the opening battle is for the city of Bobruisk. As you can see, the Russians are closing in both from the south and from the east, which is this part of the map. Obviously, the regular special rules that are in play in practically all of the scenarios are in play here as well. For instance, collapsible boats and rafts, and this one already starts the scenario actually crossing a river here, the Berezina. I always put a 0 minefield marker next to it to indicate that it has used that ability, because it can only use it once. All infantry units can do that except partisans, of which for the moment there aren't any in this scenario. Originally because I forgot, but I do think they must have been active in this area as well, so I might actually add 1 or 2. The scenario is still in its early playtesting stages. Yesterday I actually finished the first playtest, which was pretty close, and I played for 18 medals, but after a while it became very difficult for the Germans to win, which I actually still managed to pull off because of, partially because of the deep battle rule, which means that the Germans can, it basically forces the Soviets to keep on the pressure and to keep going and to keep moving forward and to, make breakthroughs and really go for it. What it does is the Germans can exchange a Recon 1 card for an objective medal. Well, it's not really an objective medal, it's a victory medal, which I always denote by placing a battle star token on the medal track. And the only small drawback they suffer from that is that they only get to draw 1 replacement card instead of 2, which you usually get to do. And so that's one rule that's in play here as well. 17 was actually more fun. So we'll see how it turns out now, because actually the Germans would have won then too, and it happened pretty quickly. So that really symbolizes that the Russians have to really make a breakthrough quickly. What I will probably do is remove the sandbags. Why is that? Because there's a rule in play, hold to the last man, which basically means that any flag roll, the Germans were prohibited from retreating, which means that any flag roll is actually a hit against a unit. So actually the sandbags don't really have a lot of use unless they're an open terrain that doesn't normally offer cover, of course. Then they might actually help, because they would reduce the number of dice that an enemy rolls against them. So that's an important special rule that's in play here. Another one that's new is corduroy bridges or corduroy roads. What the Russians did is they built these, I find it hard to describe what they actually are, but they use logs and they built things that allowed them to cross the marshy terrain over here, even with tanks, which the Germans completely were caught by surprise by. And marshy terrain is already pretty restrictive in Memoir 44, but or in a way it's not, because you can actually enter with tanks. But what I've changed in this scenario as well is that upon entering they can actually fire, which they normally can. Infantry units can, tank units normally can't, but as I said, in this case I've allowed them to do that. Other than that, the regular special rules are in play that I've been using throughout mostly. The objective medals can be obtained by either side. The Germans actually start with 11 of them. I haven't actually put them there, but they start with 11, and the Russians can actually take them from them. Another special rule is that the Germans are caught by surprise, as I said, so they actually start with 3 cards. On their next turn they draw 2 until they reach 5, and that's the number they keep for the rest of the game. The Russians have 7 cards. And the Russians can also exit from this side of the board, signifying a breakthrough, but this flank is actually pretty hard for them. As you will see, they have relatively few units over here. They could move in a few more from over here, but they would have to pass the minefields and obstacles here, but that's certainly an option to make it stronger. And the Germans, what they actually did in yesterday's playtest is they moved some units from the back to the front, and they actually held on to this town for the for almost the entire game. At the very least, the Russians didn't manage to exit anything. It's a tank obstacle here, which makes it really difficult for the tanks to cross. A minefield here. Of course, the infantry can use the collapsible boats and rafts. The tanks would actually have to build a pontoon bridge, which I have been using a lot in this campaign. You play an attack card, and you don't do anything else, you just place a bridge there, and that should open things up as well for them. This is the Drut River, which was actually flooded at the time, which is also what the marshy areas around them partially signify. It was quite marshy, but now it was even worse than marshy. And normally, of course, when you move in and you're forced to retreat, you have to move back again. So you can get really held up because of that. Yeah, so I would say that those are the most interesting facts about this scenario so far. I'm going to give it another playtest, and I will be back with you to tell you how that went. Thank you for watching, and see you on the next one.